been out talking to a lot of IT shops and a lot of data presentations in various other places. And the presentation today is short. They're only giving me 35 minutes, and it's hard for me to say anything in 35 minutes. I'm starting with the assumption that the audience knows what database archiving is. It's coming from Solix, and most likely all of you have had some education on what database archiving is. The topic that I'm going to do today is some of the thoughts about how to build a business case to convince your management and IT to go forward with a database archiving project and allocate the resources to do the implementation. I'm not going to go into a definition of database archiving and how you do it. I'm going to talk simply about what the business case looks like. Okay. This particular slide, I'm trying to cover why a lot of IT shops choose to not do database archiving, even in the face of evidence that it would benefit them. Clearly, what I don't have on the slide is the recession, which is another major factor. But clearly, any new technology always meets resistance, and database archiving is clearly a new technology. The majority of corporations know that they need to do it. They generally know what it is. Most of them have tried some homegrown solutions and have not been happy with them, and they're on the early edge of deciding whether they want to establish a database archiving function within their company or not. Gartner says we're on the early adopter stage of this new technology. And it seems to be true everywhere I go that, yes, it's in the early adopter stage. Oftentimes people just don't develop a business case or don't develop it properly. And so someone really believes the database archiving is going to be helpful, but they can't convince their management to go forward with the funding necessary to implement something. And it's usually the fault of not doing the homework and building a good business case. Another reason is that they build a business case, but it's terribly understated. Understated in the sense that they haven't really put in the business case all of the benefits that derive from database archiving for that particular application. Secondly, is there's a belief that cost of implementing is too high. And what I'm talking about here is cost of implementing a vendor solution. Many IT management believes that you can do a quick and dirty homegrown solution that would cost very little and solve problems. In almost every case, those turn out to be somewhat of a disaster. And doing it the right way is viewed as being expensive. But of course, expense should only be judged in view of savings that it would develop. Another reason it's disruptive, adding another function to a very busy database application is always disruptive. And probably one of the most interesting excuses that are used is, well, we haven't done it yet, and we can put it off for another year or another 2 years. And so I hear these same excuses pretty much everywhere I go. This slide shows that there's really 3 different venues in which database archiving brings value. The most common one, and the one we think of first, is stressed out operational databases. And I'm going to be developing this presentation mostly around that topic. But there are other 2 places where database archiving returns big value to companies. One is what I call retired applications that you're not using anymore because you have moved to a different version of that application, such as a packaged app, or you did a merger and acquisition and chose to go forward with one of the company's implementation of that application and not the other one. And you have a retired application, you have all the old data still sitting around, and it generates a good opportunity for database archiving to achieve a great deal of cost savings. The third type is legacy application renovation projects, where you're having an old application that was custom built and you're going to replace it with either a custom app or you're going to replace it with a new implementation within your company. And database archiving can significantly reduce the cost and time required to implement one of those if I don't really have to move the data to the new app. And database archiving gives you that opportunity. So these are three different areas where significant value can be returned to the company. A business case normally starts with a precipitating factor. There's something annoying that causes you to want to solve a problem. And solving that problem is foremost what the business case should claim, is that if you do this, then the problem will get solved. There is no business case that I know that you take forward to management without also putting in the cost story. What are the long-term savings, factoring in what I save versus what I spend, and then how soon do I get to ROI? And then the third part of a business case is when you say, what additional benefits do I get besides cost in solving the original problem? And so we're gonna walk down these three as we move forward. For precipitating factors, I say that the business cases generally have to improve productivity, or in the case of databases, operational performance. They have to return to cost savings, or they have to satisfy some risk, compliance, or governance issue that is a problem in the company. Database archiving, many of the vendors and the advocates of the concept in the past have always tried to claim it was a governance issue or a compliance issue, that you had to archive because of compliance. I almost never see a company accepting that as the reason to move forward. And this is a question I ask as I go around. I ask them in these three categories, what was the motivating factor for starting the project? In over 90% of the case where you have an operational database, it's operational performance. That is the burr under the saddle that is motivating the IT management to do something. For retired applications or renovation projects, it's always cost savings. Operational performance, of course, is not an issue there. It may turn out that compliance and governance are very valid arguments to do a archiving project, and I don't argue against that. What I say is that IT management rarely will give that enough weight to allocate people and money to do a project. And they may be making a mistake, but that is the way the world looks at database archiving. It's an operational performance problem solver. So let's look a little bit deeper at these precipitating causes. The stressed out database generally has the following characteristics. The online performance is constantly deteriorating. It's getting harder and harder to tune because of the volume of data. Backups take longer to run because of the volume of data, and they take up more space on valuable disk. Recoveries take longer to run, and disaster recovery time estimates are getting beyond acceptable. There was one account that I visited that justified the database archiving project solely on the reduction in estimated disaster recovery time. It was a bank where disaster recovery time is extremely important, and they estimated that they could trim 5 hours off of disaster recovery time if they get all the inactive data out of their operational database. It's an interesting case study where they had taken the analysis of the benefits to that extreme. Other functions such as database reorganizations, if you keep all the inactive data in the operational database, you tend to have to do them more frequently. And of course, they take longer to run, of course, because there's more and more data in there. And some of the ancillary functions such as run stats that you do after you do a reorganization also take longer to run. The scans that you do extracts from take longer to run. For example, the scan that you do periodically to capture data for the data warehouse or other BI stores, that you're wandering through more and more data, looking for the data that you want to pick out. It's going to take longer to run. You find that you're regularly adding additional storage, which is causing more cost and more disruption, and you need system upgrades to get more MIPS to handle all of the additional processing that's going on as a result of the overloaded databases. So if you see this laundry list of behaviors on an operational system, this becomes the precipitating factor for saying maybe database archiving can knock all these bullets down. In the case of retired applications, where I have data sitting out there from an old application that I can't get rid of because of legal retention requirements, the arguments for archiving there is, I'm keeping this old data around on expensive frontline storage, and I'd love to put it on something cheaper. Often you find people that are keeping hardware, system software, DBMS software, and application software only to support the potential request for data from an old application. And I've seen them keep staff around only just in case they may need to look at the old data. One extreme case I ran across was a company that had a mainframe. They had no mainframe applications left, but they had a mainframe. They had all of the associated hardware and software and people, mainframe staff that were basically doing nothing, but they had to keep the data for 10 more years just in case a lawsuit came in or an investigation requirement. And it was costing them well north of $1 million per year just to maintain the environment in case they needed to go back to that old data. And as I say, you may end up having to do this for many, many years. The day you turned off that application starts the clock on the last record that went in. And, if the retention requirement is 10 years or 25 years, you're going to be spending this money for a long time. In the case of renovation projects, the biggest argument that I claim is that the problem because of the force-fitting data structures of the new application to fit the old data. It takes more time to design your data structures so that they can accommodate the old data. And if you do that, you're not going to have optimal data structures for the new application. And the last bullet is that the old data will be compromised in the new system due to fuzzy conversion. That's a whole other presentation. I have a presentation on data quality issues about surrounding retaining data for long periods of time. And one of the biggest problems with corrupting the quality of the data is force-fitting data that was created under one metadata definition to fit into a system where it's got a different metadata definition. The second bullet, to move old data, I have to convert and clean it up. In the past, these renovation projects, that step often can cost more money than all the other steps put together. It consumes over half the time and budget of the project. And of course, if you say, well, I'm just going to archive the old data, I'm going to retire it and archive it, and we'll start fresh on a new day, then all of that time and cost is reclaimed. Also, another argument for archiving is if I move all the old data, I'm not only corrupted it and spent a lot of money, but I create an overloaded operational database from the beginning of the new version of the application. You just moved an old problem forward into the new system.
Same thing here. It took 10 minutes. Then he said, try again, and then it came up.
If I move all the old data, the conversion step will be more disruptive and risky. So renovation projects can save a lot of time and cost if they use archiving. Okay, the rest of this presentation will concentrate mostly on cost. The cost benefit is always the cost savings storage and system minus the cost of archiving, which includes an implementation cost and ongoing archive administration. This is probably the most important chart in the whole presentation. I love this chart. it says that if you don't archive, you're on the left-hand side, your operational database is a certain size. And I see this typically where you have a 25-year retention requirement, but you've only got data in it that's 10 or 12 years old because the law changed, 6-7 years ago, and you haven't filled up the database with 25 years worth of data. If you have that situation, you're not going to be throwing a single record away for the next 10 to 15 years. And you're running your operational database on your most expensive environment. Studies have been done that show in a typical operational database, 60-80% of the data is inactive. If you move that to an archive, guess what happens? On the first day, a huge, anywhere from 60 to 80% of the data jumps out and onto a less expensive execution environment. And your operational database sort of stabilizes around a single size. As time goes on, all the growth occurs in the archive as data moves into and out of the operational database. This is if you're trying to convince your boss to spend money, build this chart. To build this chart, you don't need a lot of complex information. You need to count the bytes in your operational database, compute what percent of it is inactive by fabricating a SQL statement based on whatever is a reasonable policy for that application. Know your retention requirement, your long-term retention requirement. Know how long you think you can keep data in the operational, and when you can safely move it to the archive. And then have your storage administrator tell you the cost per byte of operational storage and archiving storage. If you go back to this chart, plug those numbers in and build this, it's really an eye-opener to anybody that looks at it. Okay? But is that all? Is that all the bytes? Basically, I just said, if I have a byte in the operational database, I'll move it to the archive. And in fact, you don't. There's a lot of bytes that you have in the operational environment that you don't move to the archive. For example, online backups and generations of those. Remember, they all get smaller too when you archive. And they take less space and they take less time to process. Bytes in disaster recovery online plus its backups, they all get smaller. Bytes in any operational replicates, they get smaller. You don't drag a lot of indexes over to the archive. You don't need as many. And you have a lot of compression potential in an archive that you don't have in the operational database. So if you really want to count bytes, build a topology of when data is created, put in an operational database, where is the copy? Where are copies maintained and what type of storage is it maintained? And in most important applications, you're going to find that you can go back and change that chart, or the earlier chart, to take into account the fact that you don't really move as many bytes to the archive as you have backing that data up in the operational environment. In fact, in some cases, it's dramatic, the difference. In one case that I saw, a major corporation was doing backups every night and retaining 30 copies of the backup all on frontline storage, because when they need it, they need it. That meant that in operational, they had 31 copies of the database on frontline storage. Whereas in an archive, for the inactive data, they would keep 1 copy plus 2 backups. So you start doing the math on the storage, and it becomes quite dramatic, quite fast. Then there's other costs. If you never archive, you find yourself periodically doing step functions on hardware upgrades, which trigger software upgrades. And then when you go in and compute what that does to your operational environment on each of the nodes in your topology, you can factor in many other costs as well. The cost of implementing database archiving is the cost of the staff, any startup activities, which is usually just educational and surveys and that kind of thing. Implementing the first application, buying a hardware server and the software, and acquiring the storage that you're going to use for it. Most people already have that type of storage sitting around and haven't fully exploited it. And then your ongoing administration costs, which are generally very low. To build the ROI and the long-term cost benefit I recommend that you start by just doing that basic chart of if I move one byte to one byte, then just did the math on the cost that I would end up with a blue line, which shows if I don't archive, this is what my cost of storing that data would be over time. When you archive, you get an immediate step-down function, which ends up with a flatter curve because the percentage of bytes in the archive increases over time. And then my little note down there says 70% of the data is inactive, and your archive byte cost is 50% less, then the first day savings is 35%. That can be a huge number. Then if you go factor in all of the other bytes, as I talked about, and by just using a percentage savings of bytes, not just inactive versus active, and apply that to the chart, you get an even better curve. Then when you go throw in the cost of implementation, so you raise the red line because of long-term administration, and add in a rather modest cost for the implementation, you generally end up with a return on investment that is very, very short. I know one company that has done a number of these types of computations, and they end up with numbers that are embarrassed to take into their management because it shows an ROI within 1 or 2 months. And the reason for that is the latent potential that exists in the fact that you have so much inactive data in your operational database already. So there's a tremendous amount of cost savings that is just sitting there to be taken out right away. So if you draw charts like this, you can pretty well be pretty easy to convince your management that you should be able to spend a few bucks to save a lot of bucks. This argument is often, one company I went through this with, they quit right here because the argument was so compelling, they said, we don't need to do anything else for the business case. And because it was so compelling. The next thing is supporting evidence. This is the third part of the business case that says these are things that it's hard to put dollar value on, but there's clear benefits that most people would recognize and agree with. Better data availability in the operational systems because there's less data. Better tuned operational databases, smaller utility limits. We can read the list. It goes on. Your compliance issues, your compliance governance people get very happy, and I could give an entire presentation just on that topic. And everything, all of these would support the argument that database archiving is a good thing to do. This foil says basically don't build a business case in a closet. Use a lot of people to build it. You should have a full-time database archivist or archive administrator. Maybe that's one person, maybe it's two. That person would lead the effort, but include people from all of these other disciplines in the discussions around the business case. There's 2 reasons why you want to do that. One is you want to get their support so that they say, yes, this is a good thing to do, and we agree with the business case. But also, this group will throw in an awful lot of those additional arguments of why you want to do it. Every one of them will say, yeah, this is a benefit, and if you do it with just the one person, they may overlook a lot of things. You'd be surprised how often people will say, for this application, this would be particularly a compliance person, here is a clear benefit we will get. The legal department is on there because they have to establish the retention requirement, but also they have an interest in how well that data can be accessed and defended in a court if a lawsuit shows up 10 years from now. And so they're going to be a strong advocate of any such project as you move it forward. So get a lot of people involved. The business case you give, this is the outline, why are we doing this, the precipitating factors, and of course, we're going to solve them all. The cost of implementation, the long-term savings cost, the ROI, and other benefits. Any business case, you got to be prepared to discuss comparing this to doing a homegrown solution. Because I can't tell you the number of times I hear from people that, we don't really need a formal, robust archiving system. We can solve the problem by just uploading that data into unload formats or backups, save backups. cannot, in the time frame of this presentation, go into a discussion of why you don't want to do that. But I got many examples of where that turns into a total disaster, and I have no examples where homegrown solutions actually work. Database archiving is hard. It's very complex. The vendors that produce products such as Solix have spent an awful lot of money and a lot of effort. The chance of you providing all of the capabilities and functions you need through a homegrown solution is pretty close to zero. But it is very appealing to executives to be able to solve the problems with a quick and dirty solution rather than a formal solution. Just one slide on this. Homegrown solutions generally don't realize the potential cost savings, and there's a variety of reasons why they don't. They generally introduce data integrity issues, and they create access nightmares. One major corporation was using a homegrown solution, and in order to respond to a lawsuit, it took them 6 months and $3 million in cost because their method of archiving was so flawed. Most of these homegrown solutions provide an immediate solution to the operational problem, only to create other problems. And as I say, this is a topic for another day. I don't have the time to dive into that in any detail in this presentation. If you need any help on that, you can consult my book or send me an email, and I'll help you go through that. Because this comes up in every shop. My final thought, again, I'm trying to get this done in 35 minutes. Database archiving solutions generally provide for lower cost software, can use lower cost storage more efficiently, and run on smaller machines. Each business case is different. Many factors can be used in building a business case. I've seen an application justified in storage alone, capacity recovery time alone, and I've seen one justified just on the issue of better long-term data security. That was the only motivating factor they had for moving forward. ROI is generally achieved in a very short period of time, and if you do your homework, you can demonstrate that. If too often the business cases fall short because they only do that first chart, and they don't factor in all the other cost factors. And when you put them all in, that ROI just gets shorter and shorter and shorter. Each organization will have many potential applications, and I believe in building business cases for several applications to pick those with the highest value. And I also am an advocate of a centralized database archiving practice where you have one or two people or a department of experts that can go around to the different business units and help them define, design, and install database archiving applications. If you do that, you get tremendous synergies, so that the second time you do an application, then implementation cost drops dramatically, and so on through the third and fourth and fifth time. And so a centralized archiving practice, I think, is a good idea for people, and it'll improve the business case significantly. That's my last slide. So.
Thank you, Jack, for that great overview. We're just going to shift to the presentations over here, have a little bit more on the archiving solutions and all, the Solix Enterprise Data Management Solution. And Raghu Kodali is going to talk about it. I'm going to put it on to him. And we will also have a kind of a 10-minute session, a Q&A session for Jack to answer any of the questions that you might have. One request over here, please ping in your questions through the WebEx so that I can relate it to Jack, and Jack can respond back on those questions. Any questions that are unanswered, we will respond back to you through an email. Thank you very much.
Hello everyone, this is Raghu Kodali from Solix Technologies. I would like to start off thanking Jack for his excellent overview and very educative material application requirements. So what I want to do here in the next few minutes is just quickly walk you through the Solix technology solution and how it relates to a couple of topics which Jack talked about. So the first thing you're looking at here on the screen is how about the database archiving. This is something which Jack talked about. As the data keeps growing, there are two issues. One is the performance sort of drops, and then the storage costs are obviously increasing. And almost about 60 to 80%, as Jack mentioned, is historical data or infrequently used data. So why are we sort of keeping that data on tier 1 storages? And of course, there are other issues where we are looking at business continuity in terms of backups, disaster recovery, and so forth. So how are we helping in that area of database archiving? And the second part of our enterprise data management solution is, again, application retirement, which Jack briefly touched upon. And the whole idea here is essentially you have several applications which are seldom used or never used, but you still need to keep the data for compliance, regulatory compliance issues, or legal issues. So, but at the same time, enterprises are trying to cut costs on hardware, reduce the storage, software maintenance, and IT resources. And Jack gave a good example of just keeping the mainframe running just in case some query comes up for this one particular application, and you can imagine the cost of just managing and maintaining the system. So the whole idea is like how we can actually retire these legacy applications, but move the data from the legacy applications, but still have an access to that set of data. And the third part of the solution we have is test data management, which is essentially how we can save IT resources, time, and storage costs for data subsetting. And we typically see a lot of enterprises making full-size application database clones, anywhere ranging from 6 to several clones for test development and other type of activities. So how can we actually save cost and time on test data management? And an extension to that is essentially when you sort of move the production database data to the non-production environment, such as test and development, how do you cater for data security or data privacy? And here we are talking about sensitive data such as social security numbers, credit cards, PII, personal information. And now almost 45 states have specific laws on data breach activities, and it's a big compliance issue. So that's where we sort of help the organizations to better protect the data assets in non-production environments. So essentially, if you look at the Solix technology product stack, we are focused on two things. One is how we can help enterprises better manage the data assets, and two, protect the data assets. In terms of managing the data assets, we are talking about information lifecycle management, which is database archiving and application retirement. And in protection of data assets, we are looking at test data management, data subsetting, and data masking or data privacy. So I want to give you a quick overview on the product stack itself, which is called Solix Enterprise Data Management Suite, or Solix EDMS. And essentially it's a product that is built ground up with 100% Java EE architecture, so that the same product can work very, very well in a heterogeneous IT infrastructure. And as you can see from the bottom up, we have all the products sort of componentized, so it's very extensible in nature. On the data management layer, we have support for several databases out of the box, and then support for different storage systems, whether it's file system, content repository, one type of storage, or a cloud storage. And on top of that, we have the core product layer, which we call the metadata services, and essentially that is the core piece of product. There we are talking about application awareness built into the product. And here, by that what I mean here is the complete metadata model built out for existing prepackaged applications like Oracle E-Business Suite, PeopleSoft, JD Edwards, Siebel, and how you can actually extend this for custom applications or legacy applications. And on top of that, both the metadata model and the data management services are leveraged by the four components: database archiving, application retirement, test data management, and data masking. So we have customers using as one of the components or all the four components, which work very well in an integrated fashion. And to just give you an example on how customers are sort of using it, we have Sun Microsystems using it on Oracle E-Business Suite, and Ghirardelli Chocolates using it on JD Edwards on SQL Server, Duke using it for custom applications, Diebold on Bond, Rob using it on PeopleSoft. But again, the whole idea here is you have a single tool which would help you to manage heterogeneous infrastructure with different databases or different applications. So, since I talked about the database archiving, just wanted to have one quick slide on the solution here, what we provide. So you have prepackaged applications or custom applications running on production databases, and using the Solix EDMS database archiving product, you can essentially create policies on which data you want to keep in the production database and which you want to archive to that tier 2, which is semi-active data or infrequently used data. And then again, based on the policy, sort of move the data into tier 3, whether it's tape or one type of storage or cloud storage. And you have several capabilities to do the archiving, simultaneous access so that the user can still access the data from the native applications such as Siebel, PeopleSoft, or Oracle E-Business Suite. So complete functionality for prepackaged applications as well as custom applications and legacy applications. And again, as I said, one of the core functionality which is pre-built into the tool is what we call the application awareness, so that we can identify the specific transactional business objects such as customers, sales orders, service order, or invoices, and which could be spread across tens of tables in a particular database. And they could be different table spaces or even different partitions, but identifying the specific transactional business objects in the network of the tables and then moving them based on the business policies, rules, and retention capabilities. So in the interest of time, I won't be covering the other three pieces, which are application retirement, test data management, and data masking, but we have a lot of information that you can get from our website, www.solix.com. So just want to talk about a quick strategic partnership we have with Oracle. And basically, as you can see in the slide, we work with different product groups and different divisions of Oracle, and in the application and industries, the Oracle Financial Vertical Application, Oracle FlexCube, has actually OEM the technology, the archiving technology from Solix, and they actually package it with the universal banking solution. So Oracle has essentially OEM the technology that we are sort of talking about today. And then we are the only vendor who have done integration with the different stack of Oracle platforms, where systems management group, where we are providing the application awareness capability into the Oracle Enterprise Manager, data masking pack, and in the Fusion middleware, using the content repository solution to keep the data as a long-term historical archive, and of course with the database group supporting several new features of the database, whether they are like advanced compression, RAG, and so forth. And as you can see, we are the only vendor who actually has specific integrations done and certified by Oracle. This is a short list of customers, but we have talked about how different customers are using the same tool against different databases and different applications. And then we also have a strong partners, obviously the Oracle, Vortex Security, and others who actually help us reach out to customers. and work with the customers and so forth.
So we'll now, thank you very much, Raghu. We'll now begin the Q&A. I already have a few questions coming in from the audience out there. So the first question over here is, what is the typical time frame to build a business case? So Jack, you want to take that out?
It doesn't really take very long because the information you're gathering is already known. And if you get the team put together and have the first meeting and you can outline what information you need and send them off and you come back with it, usually just a few days they bring it back. And so it generally probably the biggest cost is the implementation cost and the ongoing administration of the archive. I mean, everything else is pretty well known facts. It's unlikely that you don't know what your topology looks like and you don't know how big your database is. And you don't know, I mean, you know your backup systems, you know all that kind of stuff. And in most, at least large applications, storage administrator can rattle off version chapter on the costs of different types of storage. And a vendor can, of course, help you with the administration and implementation costs. But it generally does not take very long at all.
Okay. So we have another question about the presentation. Yes, we will have this presentation available to all the participants. We'll also upload it on our website wherein you can have it available on demand. And another question over here is, what's the archive compression when compared to OLTP data? Jack, you want to address it?
It varies significantly depending on which vendor you use, and I frankly don't know what Solix claims. But there's a compression from the actual database itself to the archive, and that can be anywhere to 6 to 1 or 8 to 1, because you can use advanced compression techniques. But then, like I say, the biggest numbers come when you factor in the need to not keep the data in all these other copies in the operational environment. It's a much bigger compression. But normally, if you pack tight, so in other words, the solution doesn't have free space to support updates and deletes, that you can get a 2 to 1 compression right off the top. And then if you apply compression techniques, it depends on the data, but you get another 2 to 1, 3 to 1, that's pretty common.
So here's another question for you, Jack. I mean, we have the audience asking over here about your book, and they would like to know what's the title of it and where would it be available for them to have it at their end.
My presentation on the first slide has the name of the book. And you can get you can order a book from our website. We have a direct link to the publisher, or you can get it on Amazon. It's in all the usual places. Okay.
Okay. So I have another question. Is there any other session specific to OEBS and Solix? How can we actually do archiving and purging? Yes, you can connect with Solix in terms of by sending an email, or we'll connect with you to get your available schedules and do something more specific to your requirements on OEBS archiving and purging strategies. And there is another one, like, is there a demo session of the product? Yes, we can provide you a demonstration of the product. Just send us an email, or we'll send you an email and kind of schedule a demonstration for yourself and team specific to your requirements. And I have another question. It is, does Solix CDMS only run on Oracle database? Raghu, you want to take it up?
So the answer is